Davey again. So let's talk about the second part right here. We have this function that is called pipe, and that's what we're talking about. We talked about in the previous video, and what I've shown you there is the fact that a technology like RxJS is leveraging that everywhere. Basically, if you've done any reactive programming, reactive programming, you should have seen the pipe somewhere. Now, on the next step, in this step, what we're going to do is actually remove everything from here, and then we're going to have a small challenge right here. And the challenge is rewriting that pipe function and make sure that this entire thing is still working really well. Okay, so what we want to do is basically, I'm going to show you quickly where we want to get. So we have a function URL slur, and what it does is basically have, the name is Bond, James Bond, and what you would like to have as the output whenever you call all these functions from the pipe. So you have these functions 1, 2, 3 that will be called to actually execute a set of things, and then as the output, what you would like to get is something that looks like this. Okay, so we're missing just one function, which is the remove dot as and comma. So let's add it over here. Right. So that's it. The challenge here is basically how could you write the function pipe so that when we call that URL slug, it returns us the name is Bond with the dashes and everything concatenated, or it remove the dot and then the commas and so on and so forth, right? So it's basically string manipulation. In a certain way, you can basically use a chaining method to make it happen. But here we do it with a pipe. So let's think about it for a second. So we have these four functions. Before we even go further, we're gonna make sure that they're well typed. So we gonna copy that entire thing, 1, 2, 3, and then make sure that from here we basically give it the proper type. And then I believe that this one is an array of string, because we're gonna need that moving forward. So let's make sure that we typing it really well, right? So this is well typed, and then they're passed here as argument to the pipe. So pipe, what is pipe really? So pipe is just a function, right? So let's write that as a function. I'm gonna use arrow function right here instead, and pipe takes a lot of argument, right? So how do you write a lot of argument knowing that you don't know how many of them are they? So the way you do that, you just say they're gonna be functions, so I'm gonna pass it this way, and they are functions, right? They're gonna be an array of functions. So the best way of doing it here is basically to create a type. I'm just gonna call that FNS here, and I'm going to say that it's a function that's going to take one argument. So we see here that they all take one argument. So in our case, we're just gonna make sure that this works, and you can extend that to make it work in different scenario. But let's start with just one function right here. So one argument. So that argument could be either a string or an array of string. Well, the way we could deal with that is to say, let's make it a generic, and we're going to say this one is a T, or it's an array of T. We could make it this way. And then what does that return? Well, it returns something of type T, or in some cases, let's see what we have with the split is gonna return an array of T. So let's just make it this way, right? So now we have our type here. So what we could do with it, we can now go here and then say this one is a FNS of FNS stand for functions. You get that? Okay. So we're gonna use a generic here. So let me make sure that I put a generic properly. So we have our function pipe that takes this right here. So, and then we passing it this way. And now right below what we want to return, well, we want to return the possibility to access. So if you look at it here, pipe takes multiple arguments. So let's see, this is one function and then it's an array of it. Oh yeah, okay, we got to make sure that this is an array, right? And is not happy with this. So why is the case? Because is that the way we should be doing this? Yeah, that is correct. I have to put the generic on the other side. Now we have our pipe, which is already there. And what does the pipe return? So if we look at it closely here, we see that this function is the function that is returned from the pipe. Okay, so and if that function is returned from the pipe and then it takes an argument, so it means that this one here returns a function. And we already used that technique in one of the video where we talk about partial functions, right? Or you can think of it as, oh, the query function, where you give it a function and then it will basically turn that into unary functions, right? You could think of it this way, but here it's more like partial function that we're using. The type here, well, we're gonna have something, and the type of that thing is of type U here that we use right there. So if it's a string, it's gonna come down here as a string. That's, you see right now, this one is getting happy because it's like, you got me right. Now, what is happening inside here? What is happening in that function is we want to return, we want to make sure that these functions are being called and they just pass the result of the previous one goes into the next one. So we saw that over here where the result of that, so that system here goes into becomes the input of that, and so on and so forth. You can just keep on chaining them that way. Okay, so how can we do that in terms of code? We have an array of functions, so the best way of doing it, we can just call like a reduce on it, and reduce going to give us an accumulator and basically a function, right, which is basically the next function right here. And what do we do with it? So what we do with it is basically it's quite simple. We just have to say that the function that we receive here, we're just gonna pass it the accumulator right there. So we don't just need to call that, and for it to work, we need to take that argument right there and then pass it along, right? So this is not working yet because we're using we put it too low, right? Look at this. Now I move it a little bit up because I'm using a const right here. So const aren't hosted. If you don't know about it, I'm gonna put a video in the comment where I explain the difference between pipe between functions, and then the way you declare functions, and the fact that some of them are hosted and the other aren't really. So you see, so we have that, and when we look at the result of this, so let me also move that a little bit up there. Yeah, we're gonna put it over here, right? So when you look at the result of what is being passed here as element result, you see that we have exactly what we wanted to achieve right here, right? So hopefully that makes sense. So we have implemented our own pipe. Okay, I have a lot of returns and returns. I would love to leave it like that because that makes completely sense, but you could also clean that up, and by saying that this one is just a simple function like this, and then this one as well doesn't need an entire set of return like this, right? So we're getting there, and then you realize that, okay, if we're just returning that one there, then we don't need that, right? So let me make sure that this is well aligned. So that will be our implementation for the function pipe. And that implementation there takes into account that you can pass an infinite amount of parameters. We good? So these exercises there are also available on the Hackages Learning platform. And I urge you to just go there and try that for yourself and learn how to do functional programming the right way. Link in comment. Love you. Cheers. Bye.